Hello there. Today, okay, this is a very important topic, and you might read the title, and you might be questioning why I put the why I put that image for the video. You know, it's it's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of stuff that needs to be talked, and I feel not only Activision is responsible, but also Sledgehammers because every time they have the main title, they always screwed up. And we're going to examine it. That's why I said this is the death of a franchise because of lame writing, microtransactions, and because of what happened last year, and it's still in light to this year, the legal abuse of workers, either sexual or, you know, in matters of labor. So let's start where Sledgehammers comes into play, because even though Activision was into play, but I think, yeah, let's start with Activision. Why Activision started this. And even though Jeff Leach has said his part that he has heard, let's start it from our perspective. Because it's important to understand where things when started towards this path. So let's start at the beginning. Modern Warfare 2, where everything started to fall apart. Now, Modern Warfare 2, you might ask why? Why that game? Well, because when it launched, they're already having some issues within Infinity Ward and Activision. They said, "Hey, we wanted to do some stuff for the game. You Activision wanted to do different stuff. Illegal things happening here and there." Now, you might say, "Oh well, the game was awesome. Multiplayer was awesome. Spec Ops was something revolutionary. Everybody loved Modern Warfare 2." I'm not talking about the game. I'm talking behind doors. Behind doors, there were issues brewing. Even though we got two DLC maps. Well, not two maps. We got a lot of maps. It was a new way to actually experience Modern Warfare. Actually, a first-person shooter. We never had this uh, kind of support for extra maps. Nobody thought about it, even though they already introduced two new maps in Modern Warfare in the first one. But it was more so like, here have a little bit more, or here have this one. But then in Modern Warfare 2, to see it, they're like, wow, new maps for multiplayer. That's awesome. Even though we saw in World War more maps, but that was more so enticed for zombies. But behind doors, there were issues. Activision wanted to take things to one direction. Infinity Ward wanted to take Modern Warfare title to another direction, even though it was taking Call of Duty towards that. So what happened? The studio broke up. Major developers, writers, just left Infinity Ward, and what remained, well, let's just say that they tried to piece together what they could for Modern Warfare 3, to close the cycle over there. So the breakup was already happening behind doors. Treyarch had their thing. They were developing. They were getting ready for Black Ops, but we didn't know this issue was big. They needed help from somewhere to actually finish Modern Warfare 3. Enter Sledgehammer. Sledgehammer comes from creating the Gears of War trilogy. They finished their product. They were proud of it. Third-person shooter, different type of story, different type of building narratives, and everything. They're put in charge of the multiplayer aspect of Modern Warfare 3. That's so much Spec Ops, but, they're they were helpful here and there in helping develop what was to become Modern Warfare 3. What we received this Modern Warfare 3. Not a lot of improvements, more so like a clusterfuck of the weapons that we had, introducing a few new ones, obviously, but they just went the Halo 3 route, where you combine all the weapons that you had from Halo 1 and Halo 2, mash them together, and just balance it out. Same with Modern Warfare 3. They grab weapons from Modern Warfare, weapons from Modern Warfare 2, make a few adjustments. There you go. You know, that was, and introduce a few new ones. So, in that matter, was well, if your main team was uh, broken in half, and then another one that hasn't developed anything of Call of Duty, and it has developed a third person shooter instead of a first person, well, obviously there's going to be some issues over there, you know? And it was very apparent for Call of Duty, not only content creators, but Call of Duty players in general, even the casual ones said, hey, the verticality, some of the weapons, they don't seem to be fine in tune. Um, Even though you had the overpowered weapons, but still you had a few issues here and there. This new kill streak system, it seemed, uh, well, for me as a start, I was like, oh well, it's ingenious, you know. If you want to help your team, you can help your team. If you wanted to uh, go for an assault, you can go. If you want to go specialist, have all the perks. That was a new thing. That was likely an idea from Infinity Ward, more so than Sledgehammer's. But if it was, 50-50, that was one of the good things. But scale it down towards the players actually felt different, Oh, I'm super soldier and everything. Yet somewhat it looked, it somewhat felt Call of Duty like for the Modern Warfare franchise. Yet it didn't feel fully. It didn't feel like your typical COD. Like this was somewhat of a good direction, but it also seemed like it doesn't, because by the time they had Call of Duty Elite and everything of the maps, new game modes were introduced through Call of Duty Elite, and if you had the Elite Pass and the season, well, kind of like the season pass at the beginning, then you had uh, the way to actually, you know, play play the new stuff. And if you didn't have, well, shame on you. So in a matter of multiplayer, there was no innovation. In a matter of campaign, obviously the campaign was awesome, even though it had here and few there very, you could say questionable, but it was good. It was good overall. You know, good way to close the cycle. Spec Ops never had a evolution per se, but it was still there. Survival, that was actually a very good thing that they introduced. It felt like it needed more, but for the first iteration of survival, it was pretty good. So Treyarch had its cycle, you know, had their development, and then we got the news. Sledgehammer is going to develop a Call of Duty after Infinity Ward, and it's going to be a 3-year cycle now instead of a 2-year. And you're like, wow, well, it's going to give Treyarch and Infinity Ward, you know, more time to work up. And you said, well, this Call of Duty may be meh, that they're going to develop, or they may be developing an awesome Call of Duty. So we had Ghost. Not, it's hated by everyone. Well, not everyone, but most people. I love that, but that's personal reasons. It's not mostly of the campaign. It's mostly because it maintained me connected with my friends in the States. So it was a way for me to actually keep communication with them, playing Call of Duty. Uh, so Sledgehammer's title arrives. We saw that Ghost introduce, customize your soldier, male, female, uniforms, headgear, you know, somewhat of a new introduction of perk system. Yet everybody said that the perk system in Ghost was, well, you could say messy, but it was still an innovation. It's just, I think it needed minor tweaks and adjustments during the whole course of its life cycle. I don't know if it was possible or not. And Sledgehammer says, well, since everything is going to the future, let's go to the future. 2054. And you're like, oh, okay. And they started to showcase new technology. Their theme for the next Call of Duty is, it's going to be mercenaries. You're going to be a mercenary guy. You know, you're not going to fight in countries. You're going to be fighting other factions that are mercenaries and all that. And you're like, oh, that, cool concept. Then you hear, hey, they're going to bring Kevin Spacey at the time with no cases and no scandals. And you're like, oh, great talent. This hype is building up and everything. And then you start to see the messes that they brought into the table. For as much as let's talk about the good. The good thing is they brought with Advanced Warfare. You can deeply customize your character, even though you had male and female, but you can customize which exoskeleton you want. Gloves, boots, helmet, uniform. You had a lot of variations of weapons, The rarities were introduced, and the cool concept, of in the campaign you being mercenaries. Then you start to see where it all went wrong. Those rarities of customizable weapons, even though they don't take, I can't recall if they take attachment slots or not, but it made the game so unbalanced. The only way to actually get it, instead of actually earning it through challenges, you go into what everybody hates nowadays, but in the time nobody noticed this: loot boxes, microtransactions for COD points to get loot boxes. In the same way, for your character customization, you had to purchase COD points to get loot boxes in order for you to actually get the cosmetics that you wanted. Even though they had certain packs, but if you wanted the other ones, loot boxes. How do you get loot boxes? Buy COD points. Then their 10-13 pick system. My God, what a big, 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 big disaster. You brought in the whole repertoire of kill streaks that everybody knew, just obviously Advanced Warfare theme. They do nothing. Nothing with the advanced introduction of the advanced movement that you did. Which Call of Duty didn't need advanced movement. I understand the Sledgehammers wanted to, in a certain way, up the, the competition that at the time was Titanfall, and it had advanced movement, and it had Titans, and then this combat in space, and how you can be like Spider-Man or in a certain way move like a ninja. But Call of Duty didn't need that. Call of Duty didn't need to move into the future and have that type of advanced movement. What it needed was more so a ground-based story. For advanced movement, it was more so fix the slide and the leaning issues. Have a more under, understand with what the players want to what you want to present. Everything on the side of multiplayer it seemed like, oh yeah, we got to one up Titanfall. Hey, but we need to make money. Here's the way to actually gain all your cosmetics. And even though you didn't need to purchase uh COD points to buy those famous loot boxes, those care packages that had all the loot, and you earned it. But you had to play like 3 to 5 matches to actually get a decent amount, like one or two care packages for you to open. And since it was so random, you could get you could have been a level 1 guy, have 2 or 3 matches, open your first loot box, and you get a legendary or an epic. You know, and it actually happened with me. And my account I'm and might still be there. My first loot box that I opened, earning it through multiplayer. I opened it and I got an epic Bull 27 without grinding the game. I just opened it, Ball 27, epic, the purple one. I was like, it's in a way it's so unfair, but in another, it was the way that they created it. And you don't know if Activision actually pushed this one, but if you start to see where everything went wrong on Call of Duty, it was always Sledgehammer's title with it. The loot box system that was introduced, there we go. It started with them. And talking about the same game but different campaign. The coolest concept. You are a mercenary, a PMC, a different type of view of how warfare is fought, even though it's in the future. And you're like, wow, this is a new perspective, how private military companies can grow to technologically be uh, rivaling mights of countries, and they can fight other factions, and it's more so imposing among them. They even had a mini documentary talking about it. I was interested in that, and then it goes back to same old, nothing new changes. It's like they had this cool concept, and somewhere along the way, they said, let's not build a universe, let's just finish it like that. And even though Troy Baker said, hey, they had an alternate ending that they had Kevin Spacey disable your exosuits and he runs away, and that's how it ends. And, Advanced Warfare 2, they should have stuck with that ending, at least, for it to then make it a hunt for Kevin Spacey before the scandals and everything. I'm just surprised. I'm really surprised that like they announce such cool concept for Call of Duty. Some things that seem innovative, but they're badly implemented. Everything that they bring to the table is very badly implemented. And I've been saying it throughout other streams of analyzing individually Call of Duty. But Sledgehammers brings this, it's badly implemented. The loot box started, and you can see tons of videos. Hell, I can't recall how many LEA videos because I was like, oh, let's see what LEA brings to the table on his loot box. And you see it with T Martin, you saw it with Drifter, you saw it with Espresso, Slasher. It's like, damn, this loot box system, and I wasn't even buying any COD points for it. And so they brought this concept, and you can start to see where Call of Duty went wrong, where it started to went wrong, and it started with them. Because Black Ops 3 fixed, even though it fixed the advanced movement for multiplayer, and it brought up a very questionable campaign, god damn it, multiplayer, it was around loot boxes. For as much as you had these cool operators, that each one of them had their own background story, you play with them, you can unlock those audio files, the cosmetics, but the cooler ones, the ones that you want, well, guess what? Behind a fucking loot box. Hey, you want that nice helmet of Reaper, or you want that cool suit of Battery? Well, guess what? Buy loot boxes, and good luck with that. They even added emotes for when the game finishes. You wanted this rare weapon, this new weapon? Well, instead of unlocking it through a challenge, good luck getting it through a loot box. Monetization was crazy. And who introduced it? Sledgehammers with their title. And even though you might say, well, it was only new weapons, new balance, good luck getting them. It wasn't just cosmetics, they just screwed up everything because they introduced the rarities of the weapons, how weapons were balanced through it, with loot boxes in Advanced Warfare. Not Black Ops 3, in Advanced Warfare it all started, and that was with them. We got to Infinity War. Infinite Warfare, space. Everybody hated that one. Very awesome campaign, consistent to what it was. Even though there's just one minor mistake, but that's towards the end. But still, you can understand it because of the characters, how deeply they are and shit and everything. But it was because of the hype they had in Black Ops 3, they had to copy paste it and make it similar in their multiplayer. But still maintaining loot boxes. But because they understood nobody was liking how the loot box system was in Black Ops 3, what happened? They fixed it. Hey, you want that rare weapon? Oh, you can not only get it in loot boxes, if you save enough salvage, you can purchase it over here in the store. And you're like, oh, well, that's a good countermeasure towards it. I save enough salvage. That means, how do you get salvage? Destroy equipment, destroy kill streaks. You can earn it through match. If you have a double on the loot box system, it's returned to you as salvage. It depends on the rarity of how much salvage you get. So even though you had to grind and everything, but there was a way to actually counteract the store, and you get free care packages, you open or you have this special days. If you log in, you can get salvage. You can get a normal loot box, a rare loot box. It was a way to actually encourage you to play without spending, And even though you grinded, but you still had enough in order to get it. That's how I got my legendary M4s through salvage, not so much for loot boxes. So they counteracted. They counteracted what Sledgehammers brought to the table. They fixed that system and say, hey, no, it's like players are getting tired of it. But enters Black Ops 4. No, not Black Ops 4. World War II. Sledgehammer's title. Everybody's tired of this advanced movement. That it was introduced by Sledgehammers. And they said to Sledgehammers, you know what, Sledgehammers? Fix your own mistake. Boots on the ground. All right, boots on the ground. And like, let's return to Call of Duty's origins, World War II. All right. Yeah, understandable on that part. You can bring in the lean system, the slide. If you want the dolphin dive of Treyarch's, understandable. Bringing those mechanics back, but even better. But nope. You know what they did? They played it so safe in the campaign that everybody said, even myself included, you bring World War II game, take out the greediness of it, and try to make it the more PG for kids, a movie for kids of Saving Private Ryan. I'm sorry, what? Taking my second career over. Away from it, this equation of being a historian. You take out the grittiness of World War II, a time where everything was dark, gruesome, and you saw heavy casualties, heavy stuff on the battlefield. There's pictures, there's video, and you take out that grittiness of it. The only thing that was actually comparable towards the real World War II was only the first mission. That was the Omaha Beach. And that was it. And there's this collectibles that you can encounter on the campaign, but did they do something? You collect them and they changed a little bit of the campaign. Did they give you something for multiplayer, like a camo, an aesthetic of a rifle? Just no, nothing. It gives you nothing. It's just there, and you'll log an achievement if you get them, and like, so what put this collectibles in the campaign if they don't affect anything for the campaign? It's like they took the Black Ops thing of having collectibles in the campaign, but didn't implement it to actually change the story. Because if you go back to Black Ops 2, they had collectibles that actually affect the story, and how you play the campaign and what dialogues are introduced. Even in the cutscenes, they are different. If you had find certain collectibles, it's like it changes the dialogue. If you had certain decisions where you actually save or doom a character or tell a character to do this instead of that, it changes the dialogue. Over here, nothing affects the campaign. Nothing earns you. It affects nothing. It gives you nothing. Collecting all of it gives you nothing. So that thing was a waste of time to actually do. And on the multiplayer side, the other thing good that they actually introduced to the multiplayer side was the firing range. And have that thing where, the headquarters where you can fight your friends in a one-on-one match, and you can test your classes there. That's it. The worst thing that they could introduce was, you want to open your loot boxes? You want your friends to actually see what you open? You can do it. And there's an achievement to actually look. If you have looked through your friends, how many loot boxes they have open. So imagine that disaster. Imagine the disaster of having an achievement of seeing your pals open a certain number of loot boxes in front of you. And then you had the audacity to add useless cosmetics that you don't even see through your gameplay in multiplayer. What Ackman refers as the useless pistol grips, because you're holding the gun with it. It's like, I have a cool aesthetic over here in my pistol grip, but I cannot see it because I'm using the pistol grip to hold a gun. For what? You cannot even exchange it on the store for something better. And if you want a cool aesthetic for your weapons, good luck finding them in a fucking loot box. Again, a useless mechanic that nobody wanted, that made the experience so much worse. And then you said, oh, well, it's boots on the ground. Okay, you marketed so much, yet I can't experience boots on the ground as I should. 3-lane maps. I cannot jump over cars to actually get a new angle on it. There's parts of the map that are unreachable, even though they're reachable, but because there's invisible barriers, I cannot climb on it. I cannot traverse the map on a different way. I cannot go from east to west. that easily as I did with maps in the past before the advanced movement. And there were short, medium maps. There was no big one except Gustav that I had to see a fucking video of how it was laid out, and it's still a fucking mess for as much as it is big. So, a very bad mechanic. Very bad mechanics, more monetization. Uh, you fucked up classes because if you wanted to earn uh, some of the things that you wanted is like, oh, you had to play this specific role and have this specific challenge. It's like, but I cannot use a certain type of weapons if in this specific class. Is like, then why make this? Why don't return to normal? They did more so on the future, but at the beginning everything was a mess. I wanted to play shotguns. Oh no, you had to be on the shotgun class, and you're like, but uh, it was just a mess. Not only speaking of customization of your soldier, you wanted those uniforms, loot boxes, and good luck with that. And even though you had challenges to earn certain uniforms in multiplayer, it was not as cool as aesthetic as the ones you got in loot box through the challenges. And my oh my, how every time that it was their time in those two, they always messed it up. And even though they had constant communication with uh, the players, it just still felt that they didn't understand Call of Duty at that point. I just played the campaign. I didn't even touch multiplayer because I saw my brother's frustration with multiplayer, and he's like, it, hell, even the Garand, the M1 Garand, didn't sound like an M1 Garand. It didn't have the ping. It didn't sound like you were firing an M1 Garand. I could put a fucking video of the 40s or the 50s of someone shooting an M1 Garand, and it sounds more Garand than fucking World War II's M1 Garand. To put it in that perspective. It was just a complete mess of a game in multiplayer. I don't even recall if they had zombies. And if they had zombies, I think it was one of the worst. Because my brother loves zombies. I never heard of him playing zombies in World War II game. So, yeah. And it was a complete mess. Then comes something interesting that nobody expected. There was like a switch. Oh, well, it's not a switch. It was more so Treyarch with the loot box system. Because at that point, Activision had pushed Sledgehammer so far on what they wanted to do. And that's one of the things. You gotta understand this. Activision is trying to monetize Call of Duty as much as they can, and they took advantage of this new studio. But if this studio started to realize in their second title, hey, this monetization thing, Infinity Ward with their past title, find a loop on it, in order for our players to actually get this cosmetics or this differences of weaponries in the store by using salvage. Why we couldn't do that? It was very late on the stage of the game that they pushed that one, but not at the beginning. So by that time, everybody was just fed up with your game. And so in that sense of regard, I blame Sledgehammers of not pushing back, because if you know that other studios are finding ways to actually uh, go around what is happening to their games, even though they can't push to a certain degree, but if they can, they just go with it and try to fix it later on, but have that contingency plan ready from the start to when they see their players say, "Hey, I don't like this, I don't like that," and they push back. Oh, they just send it out, and that's it. But we never saw it with Sledgehammers, and when we saw changes, it was at the very end of their cycle when everybody was hyped up for the next one. And after World War II, when Black Ops 4 was coming, that yes, it was going to have a battle royale and they didn't have campaign, but by that time, Treyarch was actually so exhausted of fighting back and trying to hurry up as much as they could to develop uh, their game, that all the things that Activision pushed through Sledgehammer to the Call of Duty, it was expected to happen in Black Ops 4. What was the big thing before World War II was happening with Sledgehammers? Battle Royales. Fortnite, PUBG, Escape from Tarkov, those types of games with Battle Royales were gaining hype. And it was the new standard, the new hotness, as they put it. And they're, let's monetize as much as we can of this Sledgehammer's game in World War II because it's boots on the ground, and boots on the ground, they smash it towards it. With the game, being smashed with boots on the ground. And everything was that, and it didn't feel anything of Call of Duty. Mechanics were shitty, class were shitty, weapons were so unbalanced, maps were just so fucking predictable. Marksmen and snipers were just forgettable. It was just SMG shotgun rain, because even ARs with even though they had damage, but rate of fire and everything. All the complaints that I saw, even though I was playing Infinite Warfare, but I saw all those content creators having little complaints of balancing issues, certain classes is not working. Oh man, it was just a disaster of a Call of Duty. It was more bare bones than the first three Call of Duties that were just campaign wise from the very start. Let's put it that way. And it was just something that many didn't like. It was one of the dislikes Call of Duty. Then we have the disaster that came with Black Ops 4. At that time, Treyarch was also having issues with Activision, trying to push back, but they couldn't. It was already too late. Why? The studio before them was used to heavily monetize the game to the point that Call of Duty didn't feel like Call of Duty. At that point, I was just not interested. Many of us were just not interested in Call of Duty. I was trying to find other games. I actually found another game, Ghost Recon Wildlands, and I played it throughout the cycle of Black Ops 4 and the cycle of World War II. I played Wildlands through those two cycles because Call of Duty never felt Call of Duty to me in those cases. Even if I rented it and played multiplayer a little bit, I never felt like this is Call of Duty. It's like, no, it's lost. And if I wanted to play Call of Duty, it was Ghost, Modern Warfare 3, Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops 2. But you're talking about years in the past. No, the Call of Duty recent were just not. And even though I played Infinite Warfare from time to time, when I was playing Wildlands just to get a different thing, because the advanced movement was introduced. buy sledgehammers, even though it was fixed by Treyarch, but still, it just never felt Call of Duty wise. It had no place. If your maps, you can traverse them with zero advanced movement, then why introduce advanced movement? So, and even the weapons that you introduce with, let's go a little bit back. Advanced Warfare, when they started with the advanced movement. If you are introducing the advanced movement, you had to actually create weapons that counteract certain advanced movements that you have. Titanfall had that. Call of Duty never had it. I can have you pinpoint accurate with, let's say, an ACR. But you have the advanced movement, you can evade my shots, and even if I'm aiming down sights, you can evade my shots quickly and take me out. Even though I shot the first few shots on you and hit it on target, you can evade me, I'm dead. Because it's all dependent on the advanced movement. There's no weapon to counteract advanced movement. There's no guided bullets. There's no cooldown system. There's no way that you can actually manipulate the gun to a degree that you can counteract the advanced movement. And even though you went in World War II in your game back to boots on the ground, all the weapons fell flat. It's like there's visual recoil, but there's no recoil. Everything is linear, it's laser beam. And then everything on the maps is like so predictable. It's like, oh, if I spawn here, they're going to spawn over there. And because they're CQB mid-range maps, 3 lanes, and there's no cut in between to actually hide. There's no actual cover or way that they can actually take me out easily. I can just hold down the left lane and bullet house with SMG, AR. Well, there's no ARs, but SMGs or LMGs, and that's it. Where's the fun in that? There's no fun in that. Hell, you even made the Molotov a fucking kill streak. Who the hell makes the Molotov a kill streak when it has been used as a lethal? Then we come to the savior of all. Modern Warfare 2019. One of the greatest games to ever happen to Call of Duty. You know why? Because with everybody fed up with loot boxes and how it was so badly implemented in Black Ops 4 that there was no way around it. How everything was through monetization. There was no balance on multiplayer. Even though there was no campaign. But Battle Royale just felt so bad. You had complaints of everyone of saying, hey, there's balancing issues with LMGs, with assault rifles, with everything. The maps didn't feel like Call of Duty maps. They felt, I don't know which game. And at that point, you're charging the Call of Duty experience $60 when the game is incomplete. What's somewhat carrying you is zombies through a new storyline in a sense of way, but still it ain't enough. Battle Royale experience was so distorted multiplayer. It was so not only just unbalanced and 3-lane map. It's more so that you can create laser beams out of every weapon. Just a very few actually dominated the entire game. And LMGs, you can move like an AR and use them and have the damage of an LMG, movement of an AR, uh, and no recoil, so you can just snipe your opponents out of a distance. Bullet hosing rounds of it. The new mechanics for equipment was a mess. Certain abilities that the operators had were left unchecked. There was no sort of balancing thing that can actually compensate. You know, so how do you do it? How do you deal with a broken multiplayer that, for as much as Treyarch fought back, they lost the battle on that one, and loot boxes and everything they wanted to implement was thrown out the window with it. In order to save some of the franchise, loot boxes were the forefront of it. There was no way around it. There never was until it was just at the end of this bear cycle, and then came the promotion for Modern Warfare, and everybody was saying, "Oh well, they're gonna try to implement." Infinity Ward was brought back. Why? Not only the main team that was out, because once the breakup happened of Infinity Ward, and this is from Jeff Leach, once they left, Activision was reins free. They brought in Sledgehammers, a studio that, even though was given a grandiose opportunity, but they were they were molded by Activision. They were not molded by Treyarch nor Infinity Ward. They were molded by Activision into pushing loot boxes, microtransactions. We gotta do this, we gotta do that. Hey, your concept is cool, but you know what? Fuck it, I want this type of engine. Let's go back to the standard. Oh, they want boots on the ground. Okay, make this and that, but hey, you know what? Keeping monetization rolling, baby. And there was no pushback. There was no pushback. That there was apparent on it. And if they knew that this was happening, they could have just left. They just could have just, you know what? I don't want to be part of this broken cycle this broken game that you're trying to push in order to get cash cow on it. I'm just leaving. Sledgehammer should have left. After World War II disaster, they should have fucking left. That should have been the stopping point. Even in Black Ops 4 cycle, they should have said, hey, you know what? Sledgehammers, we're Sledgehammers, we're saying goodbye to Call of Duty, and we're going to go and do our own stuff. They said no. They didn't say no to them. They didn't say no to Activision. That's why I'm blaming them as well with this, because look at how Vanguard turned out to be. Let's get back on track. Once Modern Warfare 2019 hit and brought back, myself included, all those COD players that left, it brought me back. Very awesome, very ground campaign. A multiplayer that had no loot boxes because there was a push for no loot boxes through the beta, because when Nero Cinema found out that there was going to be a loot box system, he said, I'm done with the game. And everybody was triggered. That loot box system was coming back through leveling system and through other means. And you know what? Because the pushback was everybody or most Call of Duty players, Activision said, you know what? We cannot do it anymore. Change the system. Remove the loot boxes. We just gotta find another way to actually make microtransactions. No, make more money. And it was a pushback that everybody did. Now imagine if that pushback came with sledgehammers. Not just the players, but the studio said, you know what? I'm not going to be part of this uh, type of system of everything has to be monetized. We're leaving the Call of Duty franchise. We're leaving Activision and just walk out of it. Nothing. Nothing. They just kept it there. And what a disaster they come up with? Vanguard. Why? Because they were not ready. Because what this game brought was new life and the huge success that they had, and not only through Modern Warfare 2019, but also through Warzone. That was their battle royale. It was only their battle royale towards that game. And it was something new. It was free to play. It brought COD players new, and everybody say, "Oh, well, it's free to play. Oh, there's cool cosmetics." Now I know what I'm getting through my microtransactions in these packages. I'm getting this cool skin, this school, cool skins for my weapons, calling cards, emblems, assassinations, um, and you're like, "Yeah, it's awesome." It brought something new. And then you start hearing Sledgehammer having issues on development on their new game because nobody expected, not even Activision or Infinity Ward, to for their game to actually be this successful. And this is the new way that you actually have to manage everything. So Sledgehammer's started to have issues like, well, our next game is going to be fucked up because one, we have to actually ask if it were for their engine in order to pass everything towards our new engine, to that new engine, and enhance it if we can, and continue creating our campaign. Now, it's understandable, COVID year, because 2020, in a sense of why you can give it a pass of why having development issues and everything. But the matter of fact that even though Trevor had to step in, it's like, okay, we're giving you a breather. Don't have development issues now. Finish your game, finish your story. Have your third game shine. Make it the third time is a charm. Even though Troy had to step in, break the cycle a little bit in order to actually get Sledgehammer time. And they developed, in my opinion, a good game. Sledgehammers had the opportunity. They had it in their grasp. Activision knew that the type of microtransactions that were introduced in Modern Warfare 2019, and it continues somewhat in Cold War, it was actually working. There was no issues with us on that because we knew, oh, well, there's some cosmetics that are overpriced, but we don't buy it. There were some people that, because they like that character, they buy all the skins for the character. But still, everything was going good. Everything was going good. Yes, you can say there were some things here and there that were through the Cold War cycle in matters of microtransactions and weapon balancing issues and how Warzone was being treated. And you see Sledgehammers have the opportunity to create something good, a very good continuity through the Modern Warfare 2019 engine. And they fucked that up. And everybody said it. And almost when I started looking at the promo, I said, there's something that's not fitting here. I understand that you want to create like the line for how Task 141, special forces are formed. There was going to be some issues here and there that I saw, but until the campaign hit it, I wasn't sure about it. What ended up happening? Sledgehammer still had development issues for Vanguard. It was still having development issues, and everything was coming out. There's development issues here, development issues there. Why is that? Treyarch bought you time, so why still have issues? Why not? It's like, oh, they buying us time. It's like, okay, yes, you're still recovering from the COVID thing, from the pandemic hitting you and you not being in the studio, but at least it's like, oh, you bought us time. Okay, let's get this on. Let's fix this. Let's go on. So time is a charm. Let's keep going. Development issues here, development issues there. We haven't heard anything of Sledgehammer's fighting back Activision. Made it public at that time. So what ended up happening is their game, their third time as a charm, they wasted it. They wasted it. The moment, because when the campaign, I wasn't going to buy it, I wasn't going to pre-order it. Something was telling me that there was something that was not right. And I wanted to see at first hand, before buying the game, what was it all about? So when the campaign hit, and fortunately, Chaos had posted the entire campaign, him playing through the entire campaign, and I watched it. Not only as a historian, but as a COD player, I was so disappointed. I was so disappointed that all of what happened in the interviews was actually real. They were trying to tell stories that supposedly were not told. They're not told in the United States as they should. If you study history, if you're a history buff, you start to dig in by your own. It's like, oh, well, I didn't know about this and that, because they try to keep it simple, But they messed it up in the formation of their characters. They messed it up narratively in the campaign. All the campaign never made sense. Never. There were even for as much as Polina is the female sniper, the way that she was introduced for the Allies was like, okay, but how did she came to the Allies? Stalin wasn't giving up soldiers. Stalin was not very friendly towards Churchill, and barely friendly with Roosevelt. Roosevelt had to send letters to Stalin through unspoken channels in order for him to actually just try to calm him down and everything. But Stalin wouldn't have never let Polina leave the Soviet front to just join the Allies. Never. And if he did, it was with the sole mission to actually spy on the Allies, get the information, and just leave towards the Soviet Union instead of going back home towards the England with the Allies. So, and if you wanted untold stories, what about the Ukrainian lady on the tank division, the Polish, the Czech snipers, uh, in a sense of way, not only the Australians in Africa, but more so the Australians in their front against Japanese. If you wanted untold stories, instead of that pilot uh, against the Japanese forces, why not take one of those characters of the Black Americans enlisted fighting against Japanese? a lot of questionable things through the campaign. But then something interesting happened. For the first few weeks of Vanguard, because I didn't bought the game, I started seeing not only on Twitch streams but also on videos of Espresso Slasher Drifter complaining a lot about how weapons were were just not it. You had crazy amounts of leveling, 67, like the M1 Garen, 60 something levels or 70 something levels for each gun. Why? Why? It's one of the things that is World War II weapons. You cannot heavily customize World War II weapons. Yet we start to see the abominations that sledgehammers did with World War II weapons. The guy from the historic curator said, "This is an abomination weapon. Many of the things that they're presenting here, they didn't exist on the time frame." And I knew that was going to be a problem. I even made a stream about it. It's like the gunsmith system for World War II weapons shouldn't exist. It should return a little bit more so towards basic and have weapons tops level 30 or 20-ish. 27, 28 level, because you could only customize the barrel. You could say customize like the type of round that it fire. Instead of 30-06, you can fire the 303 British. But that's it. You cannot heavily customize World War II because they were not built for customization. They were never intended for that. They were just, at that time and point, every World War II weapon was made, and that was it. It was for one specific purpose. There was no modifications possible at the time, because everyone at the time thought that the weapon that you were issued, that's the thing that you can actually just do. So it wasn't, the gunsmith system was going to ruin World War II weapons, and it was going to be things that nobody expected it. Case in point, what is happening right now. Worst of all, the way that was now this new monetization, now you made it more heavily in multiplayer sites, not only because of the tokens, but more so because you're introducing Operators XP. Operators XP. When in the first two Call of Duties, in the past two Call of Duties actually, 20 Modern Warfare and Cold War, when you bought a skin, it had challenges. You wanted to get the calling card, the emblem, or the next skin that, call up out of the skin, you do challenges. No, you know what? XP, you gotta grind it up with your operator. Okay, but why? Why that sudden change? What made it so hard to actually just made it through challenges? It's like, why do I gain through just leveling up and not actually understanding my character? Because if you actually look at the type of outfits and challenges that Cold War and Modern Warfare operators had, they're enticed for what they are. Instead of just leveling it up and unlocking it like that, or going to the store, there was no challenge for it. It didn't make sense. It was just heavy through them in microtransactions, and we can see it right now. And then, oh man, the mistakes that Sledgehammers did to try to fix Call of Duty. And this is not Activision. This is their own. And this is why I accuse them of lame writing in all three. Cool concept in Advanced Warfare. lame writing because it returns to the same old fucking formula that everybody was tired of. World War II, very kids friendly World War II scenario that your core audience is not kids. Your core audience is teenagers upwards. You know, the game is rated for mature people, and they understand that World War II was gritty, was was gruesome. It was not nice. You played it so fucking safe that nobody liked it. And then Vanguard, not only through that a shitty campaign that didn't make any sense with any of its characters, but on the multiplayer side, my team versus the enemy team. There was no Nazis. There was no uh, Japanese Empire. There was no Nazi Italian ones. There was no forced French Nazis fighting against the Allies. No forced Czechs. No forced Austrians. Bosnia. There was no Allied Italian forces. No French resistant forces. No England English. Hell, you had an Australian there. You could have put an Australian team versus the Nazis or versus the Japanese. They played it safe. And to make matters worse, none of the operators that you have for multiplayer are relatable to us players. None of it. Not even the ones that are from the campaign. Why? Because you had lame writing. Instead of actually, and this is one of the crucial mistakes for novice writers, instead of for not only for novel writing, but also for TV series and movies. Show, don't tell. You narrate something or try to explain something through a character of everything instead of showcasing what actually happened, why that character is like that. You start to lose attention towards your audience. None of the characters that you have introduced in Vanguard are memorable. Yet in your interviews, you said that Call of Duty before you had no memorable characters. Let me remind you, Sledgehammers. There's Captain Price, the OG and the new one. There's Ghost, the OG and the new one. Woods, Alex Mason, David Mason, Griggs, Bowman. Bowman is just an Ice Cube, but hell, he was just one Call of Duty. Even though he was killer, he was more memorable than any of your characters. Resting up for fuck's sakes. Hudson. You got Gas, the old one and the new one. You got Soap, the old one and the new one. There are so many memorable characters from Call of Duty. None of yours from Vanguard are memorable. Not even from the World War II game that you had. And the only one that you can say that it's memorable, but just because you are tired of hearing his name from Advanced Warfare, and that's Mitchell. That's Troy Baker's character. That's the only one that you remember, but it's more so for annoyance than from what he did through the campaign and how consistent his story was. Because it wasn't consistent, it was inconsistent with what his character was supposed to be. Those sudden 180 turns, fuck those. Those don't exist in a very good story. You're fucking lame writing. You're not sitting down, reading, checking if it is consistent. It's like, nah, I'm just gonna write this. Hey, this one sudden 180. Why? Because fuck you, that's why, and that's it. And you put it in. None of your characters. You play it so fucking safe with your own operators that they're a disgrace to what Call of Duty is. Call of Duty is a first-person shooter, greedy, gruesome, yes, you can say they had some elements of arcade, but just to make it more accessible to players. But it's never playing safe. You want to play safe? You want to play safe, Sledgehammers? Go and help develop Epic Games Fortnite. That's literally for kids, even though grown men play it, but it's more so because of the funkiness that it has. Because they don't want a greedy shooter that it is Call of Duty, that it is Battlefield, that in a sense of way is Escape from Tarkov. You want They have more lame writing than anything because their story is not, even though they have lore on it and it has consistency, but because they have this dimension breaching and everything, you can do whatever you want with it and get away with it. And let's not talk about how you ruin Call of Duty with microtransactions because you were the guys that started the whole loot box system. You saw how destructive it was, and yet you never had a workaround on it until very late on your game. And then you had the chance to actually push back, even though you didn't have the loot box system. But a lot of the decisions you could push back. We never heard anything of you fighting back Activision. It was always development issues. And let's not talk about Activision. Activision has its own record now because it was exposed that they had abused workers not only through sexual but also through working everyone through tiresome. And I understand that they pay you the paycheck, but until developers walk out of the fucking front door and don't develop a fucking game, if Infinity Ward, Treyarch, and Sledgehammers just walk out of the gate of Activision, even though they own and they can say, oh, well, let's hire new people and everything, they're going to make a shitty game. But and you know what? That speaks volumes. It's not about just a few people leaving the studio or the offices and just say, hey, we're protesting. Everybody has to do it. And Activision could just hire nobodies and they could finish a very bad product, but we all wouldn't buy it because us, the players, understand what developers are going through with that abuse and work. Doesn't matter what kind of abuse. So I'm mad and frustrated at Activision, but also I am mad and frustrated with Sledgehammers because they brought all the bad to Call of Duty. And I hold them accountable for everything bad they had brought in. For as much as Sledgehammer had cool concepts, they were so badly implemented because they played it so safe. And they didn't understand how to implement it into Call of Duty as they should. If you're going to be a teacher of a grade, of elementary or middle school, you study, you investigate how it's done, how it's managed, and then you implement it. But it seems that they didn't do their diligence. They didn't do their homework, their research on it. They just said, "Oh well, just first person shooting everything, and everything is a mess." There's no consistency. There's no weapon balancing. The movement is a mess. It's like they didn't take any feedback from the players. And so we reached the end of this stream on how Activision through Sledgehammer Studios killed Call of Duty as we know it. And the only franchise that actually, you could say, revived it for at least 2 years was Infinity Ward. And Treyarch just carried what it could through Cold War. And everybody in the Reddit pages of Call of Duty, I can see the memes of Bernie Sanders of they're asking once again to Infinity Ward to save the franchise. But how I look at it right now, inconsistency of story, the theme. And here's another thing. Why? Why destroy consistency of a story? Godzilla versus King Kong. That's the theme of your season 3 Warzone. Even though it's an event, but your classified arms, your your classified arms that you have in your poster, those are around your event. When past events happen in Cold War and in Modern Warfare, they were never around the event. The event was just something that was like meh, out of just for us to have fun. The two hauntings or the events of uh the Cold War reveal, they were just exclusive, but the season was not around those events. The season had its own consistency of the story. It's just the events was put there for actually promote the game, but they never affected the whole story. Another thing about lame writing. Hey, there's an event coming, the Godzilla versus King Kong. Oh, cool. Because we are out of ideas, let's make the season 3 around that event. Hey, but this is not going to affect the story. Oh, screw the story. It's just promotion. You're already affecting the story. Because then it's like what a lot of things that happened in Cold War, the consistency of it. Black Ops 2, what's going to happen towards it? Now, future games have to fucking reference Godzilla versus King Kong. For as much as in an event, you had the whole fucking season 3 theme around it. So now you fucked up the consistency of the story that Infinity Ward was going to take in their new Warzone. Now they had to reference it in the fucking campaign. They cannot retcon it on the future. That's the sad part. And if they can, they have to actually fight it like this for season 4. To actually say, hey, the old man was crazy and he was delusional. That's one of the fixes. But I hardly see it happening because they are proving, at least to me, that they don't care about consistency within the story, about building characters from nothing to something. They just cared that they pushed their product and said, we're good, when they're not good. When they try to push their morals when nobody asks about their morals. They haven't fought back a publisher that has been found harassing workers, developers. I expected Vanguard to actually be your third time as a charm. With this, you just proved to me, Sledgehammers, you're not a developer for Call of Duty. You're a developer for other games. That's for sure. You can make other awesome games. Just stop making Call of Duty. Treyarch and Activision. Well, no, not Activision. Treyarch and Infinity Ward can actually push back on Activision. It seems like you cannot. Why is that? I don't know. I don't know. And anyways, I had to get it off. I had to get it off. It might not seem pretty. It might seem that I really hate sledgehammers. It's more so I'm very disappointed and frustrated of what they have done to this franchise, to what they have introduced on their cycle and has ruined Call of Duty. That Treyarch and Infinity Ward had to fucking save it from them. That's why I say Sledgehammers has to go. They can develop other games if they want to, just not Call of Duty. Just not Call of Duty. Don't touch my franchise anymore. So we just reached the end of the stream. Hope you guys are okay. Stay safe. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Well, we're just a few days from the Modern Warfare 2 reveal, so I'll just wait until then. Until then, big trust.